younger age groups in soccer, any sport for that matter, need to be taught, nurtured, and developed accordingly. I personally believe they're the most important age groups, those young, tender ages, let's say U6 through U9, 10, 11, and beyond on occasions. One fundamental specialist we have with us today who just dropped in is, I'm going to say, welcome, Koach Karl D, the legendary fundamental specialist, as I mentioned earlier. Koach Karl, thank you very much for joining us here on Sport in Denver.
Richie, thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to join you.
Brilliant. We've had a chat over a period of time, over the last several months, and just throwing out some ideas for those younger age groups. But I did call you Koach Karl D. We've got you listed out there. Hopefully this time the spelling was correct, Koach Karl. Give us a pronunciation, and where does that name originate from? Where do you originate from, Koach?
Well, the original name is Dewazien. So what happened was my dad was captured by the Nazis, thrown into a concentration camp, and they only had so many spaces for the name, and that's where Dewazien came from. A lot of people think that I'm also Armenian because I have an I-E-N ending, not I-A-N. So that's how it started. So if you want to say Dewazien, that would be fine. If you'd like to say Dewazien, that's fine. But any way that you pronounce it is fine, because there are only 3 of us in this whole world that have that last name, D-E-W-A-Z-I-E-N.
Dewazien?
Dewazien, that would be correct.
Okay, I'm not going to spell it, Karl.
I have no idea.
That's a fantastic piece of education, and you've brought that, I think, culture into what you do. And I'm good to start with those younger age groups. Okay, what got you into specifically your passion for coaching and mentoring coaches and players in those very young, prime age groups of learning and development, Karl?
Okay, Richie, it's a long story, but I hope you don't mind it, because
go for it.
It did start with my childhood. As I told you, my dad was in a Nazi concentration camp. My mother was also in several concentration camps, and I was born and raised in Germany, but I do not remember any of my childhood. And so one of the things that I wanted to do as soon as I had an opportunity was to make sure that children that go through that stage actually have a childhood. And I figured we could do it through sports, because I tried going through, let's say, the teenage group. And I found out that with teenagers, they already had their minds and their lives made up. So I tried to go into the younger age groups, and I started as a school teacher. And I found, as a school teacher, one of the problems that you run into, it's a very difficult one, is that the children are forced to be with you by law. So my first year as a school teacher, I actually had 42 students in the classroom. And I realized that half of the kids liked me, and so I could reach them. Another half of the kids weren't sure about me. And another half of the kids just wished that they were in another classroom. And so I figured I can't reach by teaching children in the classroom. So I figured what I would do is maybe try sports, because the child has to come to me with an interest.
Right.
And so I figured out that if I reach the children, then maybe I can make a difference in their life. But then I found out that if I was coaching a team, I would only reach that particular group. But if I reached an adult, now I could reach more children. So in other words, if there was an adult who had 18 players, I now, by reaching that adult, reach 18 children. So my goal has always been, I'm trying to make sure, or try to figure out some way that I can reach an adult to make sure that they reach the child who enjoys the sport, And by coming to us, we can somehow get them to do better grades, do things that are proper in life.
Just straight off the bat, Carl, I just want to say thank you for sharing a bit of history in there through your childhood and bringing that certainly into your philosophies of coaching and nurturing those age groups, and not just on the field, but off the field, as you say, in life. Would you say, Carl, that working with those younger age groups is a different skill set from, let's say these high-end coaches, which you are anyway? Do you think it's a different skill set that you need certain superpowers, maybe, to engage with them? Am I sort of correct in that? And what is your superpower then, Carl?
I have no idea, because I'm serious. The way I look at it is I try to reach every single individual by the moment that I'm with them. So if it's a child, I try to become childish. If I'm with an older person, I try to act older. And I think the biggest thing that I find has to do with body language. And one of the things that most of us, we do in sports is we're very serious about it. And I honestly believe that if you can at least put a smile on your face in your introduction to the children, then, it eases them up and opens them up. And then I try to ask a lot of questions to find out where they're coming from. And I try to listen to the children. And once they come up with something that I enjoy listening to, then I just build on that. But I try not to control the environment. I try to get the children to do the controlling for me.
I think that is primary in asking for involvement into what you want to make the session, the activity. Let's say activity. I hate the word drill. That sounds like you should be in the military, Carl. Right?
Rich, you've just become my best friend, because I hate the word. Absolutely. I absolutely hate the word drill, because to me, as you were going to say, it's militaristic, and children don't come to us to be controlled. They come to us, hopefully, to have some fun. And I'm sorry I interrupted you, but I just want to give you a compliment for getting rid of that word drill.
Since we share those younger age groups, have you ever been there doing a session and some boy or girl has just come up to you and says, "Hey, coach, here's what I can do," and it could be crazy, and do you feed off that as well to the rest of the group? "Hey, look at this. This is great by Kevin or Caroline. This is great." Do you feed off them, Carl, during your sessions?
Absolutely. One of the things that I do is, rather than using the fancy names, like a Messi and a Cruyff and all of the different moves, is if I have a child who knows how to do a particular move, I have them do the demonstrations for me. The child in turn then, instead of calling it the Cruyff, which some of these kids can do even at the younger ages, it becomes their move. So if it's Charlie that is doing that particular move, from then on in, the move is called the Charlie. And then what I do is, and let me just give you a quick example.
Sure.
Let's see, for example, that we're going to teach the child how to do a step over, a step over. Yep. So one of the things that I do is, instead of calling it a step over, I call it slicing. So the foot becomes the object, and we slice over the ball. And let's say that we do a slice with the left foot, we slice with the left and take with the right. Or we slice with the right and take with the left. So now Charlie can do the demonstration for me, and he slices the ball to the left and takes the ball to the right. The other kids then, as they move around, and this would be inside of the warm-up, which we put them inside the fundamental square, because I always want children to make decisions.
Sure.
And they all have a soccer ball, and they are now going to do the slice. And I, as the coach, start out by saying, slice left, and then maybe even use the word take right, or slice right and take left. And all these kids are, running around, and they're slicing left and right. But not only do I have them slicing the ball, but I have them to say the terms at the same time. So for example, when I say slice left, all of the kids have to say slice left and take it with the right. The reason for that is some of the children may not be coordinated enough to do the slice yet, but what they can do is say the words. So when they're saying the words, and I can walk up to them and I can say, what move are we doing right now? How do you do the Charlie? They might say, slice left and take with the right. I can give them a compliment for being successful at being able to use the terminology. And then hopefully, they'll practice it on their own later on. If they can't do it, what I also do is get Charlie now to work with the child who's having a difficult time with it, and they work with each other. So it's peer groups where one child teaches the other child, and I try to stay out of it.
Simple language, visual with one of the, let's call them athletes, players, and high-end success rate. You said you did that in the warm-up. What would your session look like? Your fundamental, your fun session? Can you just talk us through one and the bullet points, the key areas that you introduced there, Karl?
Yeah, let's go through bullet points, because my practice session, it would take at least 3 to 4 hours. But I have 9 steps, and I want to make sure that the coach follows those 9 steps in every single practice. And the reason is that we want to create habits, and the child needs to understand what's happening. And if you don't keep repeating the same thing, if you have a different practice every time, the child is always confused. So the way that we start off is we start the practice. And let me just give you a quick example. I'll just take all the bullet points.
Yeah.
And I'll give a very brief explanation, but I'd like to go back to the beginning again. But we start the practice. That's step number 1. Now everybody goes, well, that's obviously we start the practice, but what we need to do is do something that tells the child that now is the time that I, as dad or the friend or whatever, now become the coach. And the child who now is on the field now becomes a player. So what we do is we start a little bit of what we call maybe discipline, and we might do it with a high five or some kind of a team cheer. But the child now needs to realize that no longer are they the free bee, but they are now, or let me put it a different way. Child at school, in recess, they have all kinds of fun. Once they go into the classroom, they become a student. So you have a child at recess and you have a child in the classroom. Well, child before practice is one child. Once we start practice, you have a different child. And that is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. So you have to start the practice. Step number 2, and by the way, you also have to, in step number 1, you have to tell the child what they're going to learn. They need to know what you're going to focus on. But also, this is the reason why I want for these people to have what we call a theme, have a theme for the practice, is so that the coach doesn't pick on all the other things when children make mistakes. In other words, if we're going to work on the slice that we talked about earlier, then the only time that the coach makes any comments during the rest of the practice is when the child needs help with the slice. All the other mistakes, let them fail their way to success. So we don't make any comments on any other thing. So that would be the theme, start a practice. Step number 2 is the warm-up. And the warm-up is always inside, excuse me. The warm-up is always inside of the fundamental square, every child with a ball. And by the way, to me, this is the biggest clue that I can give, or hint that I can give people. We shouldn't give them trophies. Give every child a soccer ball, and a soccer ball that they can take home so that they can do their practices at home. Sorry about this.
You're fine.
So inside the fundamental square, the child is now using their imagination to play against an opponent doing the slice. So it was the demonstration explanation at the start of practice. They now practice it against no opponent. From there, after the warm-up, we go to the 1+1. And I'd like to go into some detail in that in a little while. From the 1+1, we go to 1 versus 1. And that would be the first half of practice. And the biggest thing that I try to get across is if the ball is moving and the children are moving, learning is taking place. If the ball stops moving or the children stop moving, soccer learning stops. So we want the ball to constantly be in motion during the practices.
Right.
After the 1+1 and 1 versus 1, and I'd like to break these down in a little while if you ask me the questions, we take a break. Because if you play 1 versus 1, and I ask the coaches to have every player play against all the other players on the team in the 1 versus 1. The reason you want to play against all of the other kids is because you'll face somebody who's as good as you are, and that would be an equal. Somebody who's better than you are, and they might do the slice correctly, or somebody who's weaker than you are, and now you get a chance to actually work on the slice move against the opponent. So now you go from 1+1 to 1 versus 1 and playing all of the players on the team in the 1 versus 1 games. And I'm talking about all the kids playing at the same time, large group playing against each other. They get pretty tired. And so when they get pretty tired, we have halftime. We take our break. We go over the fact that they are still working on the slice, but now we go into the small-sided games, and it's usually maybe 2 players against 1 player, still working on the slice move.
Right.
Small-sided games is small groups, and then you go into a larger group possibly, and eventually you go to the scrimmage. So you go warm up, 1+1, 1 versus 1, halftime, small-sided game, scrimmage. And you know that the scrimmage is always the fun game because hopefully we leave the kids alone to just play. And then we go into the cool down, and then we end practice. Now, ask me some questions on some of these steps though, because I know it's rather quick and might be a bit confusing, but I'd like to answer the questions.
I think you're creating a visual of what I would be coming into, or any youngster would be coming into with that session. Very specific, very simple instructions. And I'm going to ask you this: the phrase "feeling the success." I've never heard that before, Carl. So, is there any phrases in particular that you use to deliver in your sessions, those phrases? Because we all say we're in it for the kids. I hear that from everyone. You know, are we? Hopefully, most of us. But those phrases that you use, can you deliver some of those phrases?
Well, I prefer not to go into phrases because, again, it's the adult talking.
Okay.
My preference is for the child to succeed.
Right.
Okay, so let's go back to let's go warm up and then the 1+1 and 1 versus 1, because I'm sure it's something that's brand new that you've never heard before. But in the warm up, the child now is using his imagination, and they're doing the move amongst other individuals that are all dribbling around at the same time. So they have to make decisions of when do I do the move properly, because otherwise they're going to run into other players. Okay, I might be able to compliment the child by doing the move correctly. But rather than just saying, great job or nice move, I use it as a teaching tool. So if I say, great job, Johnny, because you sliced the ball with your left foot and you took it with the right, by saying it loud enough, the other kids realize what I'm focusing on. And obviously they want the attention, so they'll try to do it correctly. And when they do it correctly, now I've got to say, and we're talking younger kids again, now I have to say, nice job, Johnny, because you sliced it with the right, you took it with the left, etc., etc. So it's a compliment to the child, but also a teaching tool at the end of the compliment. But let's go into the 1+1.
Yeah, please.
Okay. What I'd like to do is, I'd like for you to think about yourself playing on the field right now in a small-sided game. And all I say is Richie. Okay. Now I have to say it a little bit louder, right? Because you're a bit of a distance away from me. Okay. All I say is Richie. What is going through your mind as soon as you hear your name? Richie.
I'm hearing you. I'm probably focusing on you. I'm looking for you.
Okay, but what's a child taught when their name is said a little bit louder at home? What goes through the child's mind, or what's going through in that process?
I don't know. Is there a bit of fear factor there? Maybe. I don't know. Depends on the tone, I suppose, Carl.
Okay, so now everybody's told me this. As soon as we raise our voice toward a child and they hear their name, which is, the most wonderful sound that they can hear, they think they're in trouble. Or they start looking, what's the coach trying to say? Or in the older age groups, you have peer group pressure. Well, there goes Richie again, ruining our game. And I might be trying to make you a better player, right? That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
I call out your name out loud. You may have made something positive, or you may have made something negative, but are you open at that moment for me to give you more information? Are you open to learn?
I think I need more. I want more.
Do you? You want more when you think you're in trouble?
Educate me.
Okay. Let's change it around for a second. Because you said, when I called out your name, that maybe there's something wrong.
Right. Bit of fear
What
factor,
I'd like
right?
for you to do, what I'd like for you to do now is realize that I'm here to make you a better player. And in order for me to make you a better player, you have to be relaxed enough to take in the information that I'm going to give you. Okay? So anytime from here on in, when I say your name, all I'm going to do is say Richie. I'd like for you to hit your chest twice, give me the peace sign, and put a smile on your face. Do you understand those instructions, Richie?
Yeah.
Okay. But do you see what happened? You hesitated because I gave it to you verbally.
Yeah.
But I didn't ask you to do it right away. If
Right.
I were a good instructor, I would say, Richie, anytime you hear your name, I want you to, and let's do it together, hit your chest twice, give me the peace sign, and smile. Okay? I'd like to see your teeth when you're smiling, though.
I've not put them in this morning, so these are just the false ones in there. So,
okay, Richie, well, let's try it again.
Yeah.
You notice how I hesitated to make sure that you followed my instructions correctly, instead of saying, hey, how come you didn't hit twice and smile?
Hey, what I'm feeling from this, and this is brilliant for all the parents and coaches and players listening out there, just by turning around and having trust in you and faith in you, because you are an excellent mentor and coach. We get that anyway.
Thank you.
You've already built up a relationship with a name call. Hey, Richie. Hey, Carl. There is no fear factor. That's gone because we are now, I suppose, putting that, calling my name, into something really positive, right? Rather than at home, Richie, tidy your room. Is that what I'm getting? That's what I'm feeling right now from you. You've just educated me.
Of course. I mean, all you need to do is get your child to do things that you want them to do by making it a positive instead of telling them what to do.
Right.
Now it becomes the child's way of responding back to you. So anytime I say, Richie, look what happens. Okay, I've just created a habit in you to continue following up
Brilliant.
in a positive way, and you're open to receive information.
Brilliant.
Makes sense so far?
Oh, bingo.
Okay, so now we go to the 1+1. That's the practice session. In addition, that sign, what does that mean?
Sorry, do that again. Go.
The sign 1+1. The sign in the middle, what does that mean? In
V versus, I'm assuming it's a challenge.
We're not into the V yet. We're not into the verses yet. We're into the 1+1. It's one.
Oh, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking there's going to be two of us in there if I'm just doing calculation, right?
Right. There's two players.
Yeah.
But there's a sign in the middle.
Plus.
Players learn using stoppages. Okay. Or the coach is going to add information.
Right.
Okay, so we are now, the plus means cooperation. So you are going to cooperate with me because all I'm going to do is say, Richie. Okay, and we've got this. And now when I stop you, During the 1+1, you are going to give me these signs, and we're going to be friendly because I'm going to give you information that's going to improve you. Cooperation now, we've got two players, one player plus one player.
Plus one, yeah.
They are going to cooperate with each other. So if, let's say that you're working on the slice move, and I'm going to cooperate, but you're just getting started with it, I might stay stationary to make sure that you're successful in doing that move against an opponent.
Okay.
Okay, so
Yeah.
1+1, slice move. As you get better at that move, I might start walking towards you and you do the move. Eventually, I might go at speed.
Right.
Okay, so the coach will understand or look at and see what's the capability of the children, right? Are they able to do it? If they're able to do it, more pressure. If they're not able to do it, less pressure. And this is all in the 1+1.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the things I should have said earlier, though, and I hope you don't mind me skipping back for a second, because what's extremely important in the 1+1 is we need to teach the children to lay out their own environment.
Right.
Okay. I never touch a cone after about the third practice.
Okay.
Or flags or anything else. The players are in charge of that.
They're developing their own universe, their own world, right?
Not just that. One of the difficulties we've got in this country is that kids only come to practice and play soccer. But when they're in free time at school or at home, what do? Play computer games. And why? Because we've taught them you can't play soccer unless you've got an adult laying out the environment for you.
Right.
Okay, so you teach the children. Okay, so, and I'm sorry I'm going backwards. Hopefully I'm not confusing you.
It's brilliant.
But inside of the fundamental square, one of the sessions that I put on is I have the children with two cones.
Right.
They're dribbling around. They're doing their dribbling moves, you know, in this case would be a slice, but they have two cones. When I say cones down, the kids put their feet together. They go to the right side and put down a cone, bring their feet together, go to the left side and put down a cone, and then they start doing a figure 8 dribble. Okay, I'm going to ask you another trick question. Hopefully you'll come up with the answer. Why do you think I really try to focus a lot on the figure 8 dribble?
Educate me.
Okay, if you take a child or a player at a higher level, they always have a dominant foot. They're either right-footed or they're left-footed.
Gotcha.
If you take the figure 8 and you ask the child to dribble in the figure 8, what they will do is use their strong foot all the time.
I see it.
Okay. Now, most coaches tell them to do what? Use your other foot. I go in another direction. What I ask them to do is speed up the dribble. Go a little bit faster.
Right.
What happens when you start speeding up? And I want you to experiment with this because I've done it with my grandkids or grandchild. As soon as the child speeds up, they'll start it naturally using both feet. Okay, so that subconscious mind is going to pick up the information and they're going to go right foot, left foot.
Yep.
One more thing while we're going on the figure 8. One of the things that you'll find is the child will use the inside of the foot to change direction. Inside of the foot to change direction with both feet. So they do it naturally using the inside of the foot. If you watch a player under high pressure, watch some of the games, you know, World Cup especially, when they're under high pressure, what part of the foot do they usually use? The sole of the foot. Okay, so instead of going around that figure 8 using the inside of the foot, I try to get the kids to use the sole of the foot to change direction. Because the one they do naturally, the next one, hopefully after time, they'll also do naturally. But now, if I take the cones, sorry, I'm skipping again.
Keep going.
I take the cones and I put it to the right side and I put another one to the left side. You've got the figure 8. Also, what am I laying down here? Later on that we can use in the 1+1.
Educate me. You're delivering.
It's a goal. Okay, so now I'm asking, right foot, left foot, there's the goal. Take 10 steps. You take 10 steps, lay down your goal. What if I just laid out?
Have you laid out some targets?
Right. You have a goal. I have a goal. We're playing 1 against 1. Okay. How far apart are those goals going to be? 10 steps or 10 yards. Because it's 2 players. And once I get into the small sided game, I'll explain it to you. You have 2 players, or I'll do it right now. Here's the formula. If you have 2 players, what's the largest number of players on the team right now? 1. Okay, so we take 10 steps. If we were playing 2 against 1, how many steps would you take? 20. 20 steps. If we're going 4 against 1, 40 steps. 4 against 2, 40 steps. 5 against 1, 50 steps. Why? Because how many players on an adult field?
22 in total. There you go.
Okay, but on one team?
11.
11. What's an official size field?
Oh, you're looking at maximum sizes like 120 by 75 or something.
Usually 110.
There you go.
Usually 110.
Okay.
What does that make per player? 10 yards per player.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay, so 1 plus 1, they're 10 yards apart, and we're cooperating. So you might be stationary while I'm working on the slice. You might be walking, which means I'm a little bit better at it. Or you might be coming at speed because I really know how to do the move. But at the same time, Rich, you might help me because I might be making the move too far away because we're cooperating. You as a player and me as a player, I'm working on it, and you might be the better one. You might be the Rich move, right? The slice.
Okay.
Okay. You might tell me you're making it too far away. So players are cooperating with each other, and they're also cooperating with the coach because as soon as he says, Rich, what are you going to do? Okay. From the 1 plus 1 where I teach and I talk, we go to the 1 versus 1. Same 2 players. What does the VS stand for the players?
I think it's like a challenge. It's competition, right? Versus
competition.
Maybe. Yeah.
Absolutely. What does the VS stand for the coach?
Educate me.
Come on, take a guess. I don't want to educate you. That's too quick. I want you to make some mistakes.
Well, again, you're offering a challenge from the coach, I think.
Okay. But what does the V and the S stand for? Because we say when the kids are playing against each other, it's versus, right?
Versus, right?
Yeah,
versus. Yeah.
But what does the VS stand for the coach?
Go on. This is great. Come on.
The coach is verbally silent. The kids are competing. The coach is verbally silent. Because if you and I are competing against each other, and I said, Rich, what would you naturally do? Okay, what am I doing in the meantime? Scoring a goal. Would you be happy with me as a coach?
No. No, mate. Thank you.
Okay, so you go from the 1 plus 1 where there's cooperation to the 1 versus 1 where there's competition.
Yeah.
You go from the cooperation where the coach does a lot of talking as much as he or she wants. In my case, I like to ask more questions. I don't like to tell the kids. I like to ask them questions like, what did you just do right? Or what could you have done? But once they're into the verses, I leave that part alone. They experiment their way to success. But here's what's extremely important to me. The coach needs to make sure that it does become a competition. So we always keep score. Now, I don't care if they're 6-year-old, 8-year-olds, or the older ones love it, by the way. The 6-year-old, no child wants to lose. Every child likes to compete. So you want to put it down where they can actually see the results. So when they're playing their game and rotating and playing against each other, get one of the parents or the assistant coach who writes down who plays against who and what was the score. This can also help you in the older age groups, 14s or the teen years, where the parent comes up, why is my kid not starting? You can show them that 1-versus-1 competition. Okay, so you have a chart of if they want to get better or they want to start the game, go home and play some 1-versus-1. Because to me, that is the one thing that's lacking in this country. The kids don't, and you had it in your introduction, where the kids are playing on their own in the streets.
Yeah.
Okay, so now they've played against each other, they're tired. So we go to small-sided games now. Okay, small-sided games. So we've gone from individual with the ball to 2 players with the ball, and now we go to more players with the ball. But all they're doing is playing soccer. It's one of the things that I really, and I know I have a lot of people that disagree with me, but I think that unless we have 2 goals, a goal to attack or a goal to defend, and we're playing all these other games, you know, Simon Says, Sharks and Minnows and all those games.
Right.
I used to do those in camps. But the reason was because I had the kids for 24 hours a day. And they can't play soccer, you know, for 24/7.
No.
So we came up with fun games. But those fun games were simply to keep the kids active, but not to become soccer players. So any activity, I believe, in soccer should always have a goal to attack and a goal to defend, even at 6 years old. You can eventually teach that child, you've got something to defend, you have something to attack. Okay? Then from the small-sided game, you end up in the scrimmage. But 2 questions. What's the first kind of small-sided game you should play? By the way, it's a trick question.
Could you just say 1v1? That's the smallest you can go.
We already did 1v1.
Okay, moving on.
The first time. We're now in small-sided games.
2v2?
Remember, small-sided means plural. Okay, and 2v2, if you play this game here, 2 against 2, what are the odds of the kids being successful maybe in passing the ball if we're always even? What's the smallest game you can think of? How about 2 against 0?
Okay. Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
How far apart are the goals going to be?
10.
2 players?
20 paces?
20 paces.
Okay, get it. Yeah.
Goals.
Brilliant.
And now we have 2 players working with the ball. What's the next game that you might play? After 2 against 0, what do you play?
2v1.
Okay, and you already started with 2v1. What's the first game that they should be playing?
Educate me.
2 plus 1.
Then it's V later, right?
Remember, you have to teach first.
Yeah.
If you don't teach first, why do you want them to compete? Now, if they're competing, no success.
Right.
You want cooperation first.
Cooperation. Let them feel that success first, and then introduce a bigger challenge and another problem to solve, maybe.
Yeah, let's go to that one. Let's say I've got a game of 2 plus 1.
Yeah.
And you're working on something. It's up to you what you're going to work on.
Okay, yeah.
From the 2 plus 1 game, what's the next game going to be?
2v1.
Excellent. You get your A license.
You've just see, all the people that are watching this, that's an education, because it's not rocket science. It's very simple. Carry on. Go.
Well, see, but I need to explain this because usually as soon as I say, if you have a 2 plus 1, what's the next game? Or 2 versus 1, what's the next game? Everybody says 2 against 2.
Okay.
That's a different game already. You need to teach first and then test them. The teaching is cooperative and then the versus. So you go 2 plus 1 to 2 versus 1. Okay, trick question. You've got 5 players, 5 against 2. How far apart are the goals?
Did you say it was a trick question?
No, you've got the answer already.
5v2.
No. Don't say 5v2. Always say 5+2. You always need to teach first.
Are we looking at 70 paces?
50 paces.
How many players on the largest team?
Anthony, get out of it. This is me being scrutinised here, mate. That's Spielberg, our executive. Okay, 5. So I'm going to go. Anthony's got it. There he goes.
It's always the largest team times 10.
Okay, yeah, because I did come in initially. I said 22. You broke it down to 11. So the largest team anyway would be applicable to that. Gotcha. I'm educated again.
Oh, I love teaching.
Okay, but really, we got to wind it down, you two. You can talk for hours, but we only got a 40-minute show. That leaves you 3 minutes.
Okay, we've been blown at 8. You know what? I like to leave our viewers hanging. Carl, would you? I'm going to ask you the quick 5-5, which you don't know about right now. Thank you. Pure education. We've only just touched the surface. Would you come back again, later on, maybe after the summer, and we can Carl D part 2? Would you be good enough to do that?
I would love to come back, and thank you so much for saying that you have learned a few things, because
many. If
I've reached you, hopefully you'll reach some other people with this information, and the kids are going to benefit out of it.
We'll bob this out. Can't let you go. I'm going to get kicked out of the studio, of course. You've got some time left in here for the quick fire 5 questions. One word, limited answers if you can. What team do you follow? What team?
What team do I follow? The one that's on the screen winning.
There we go. A player that inspired you in your generation growing up.
Gert Mueller.
The Predator. I get it. Biggest piece of advice to parents. Short sentence.
Make sure that your child has fun playing the game. And if father is going to play against the child, make sure the child has the ball more often than the dad.
And certainly over the controls for a video game. Gotcha. Biggest piece of advice to coaches.
Biggest piece of advice. Make sure that you love the children, get to know them personally, and try to figure out some way that you can actually reach and teach them, not just about the game of soccer, but also things like school, discipline, and all the things that will make them a better human being in the long run.
Brilliant. Question number 5. I'm getting thrown out. Thank you. Would you leave our viewers, as question number 5, please leave our viewers your curtain call, your final message to everyone. Once again, Carl, thank you, brother.
I thank you. And the outcome of our children is infinitely more important than the outcome of any game that they will ever play. They have one childhood. Please make sure that they enjoy it. Thank you for having me here.